How's it going, guys? This is Ty and Gabby, and we are Weddings Made Perfect Podcast. Our email is weddingmadeperfectpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to email us any special topics and hit on that topic for up and coming episodes and whatnot. If you are getting married or just recently got married, definitely send us an email or comment on our video. And we would love to hear the date that you guys got married or even just a story of how you guys met so we could give you guys a shout out on future episodes. We're also on YouTube, so if you want to watch us instead of listening to us, definitely check us out there. Just type in Weddings Made Perfect Podcast and we should pop up. Either way, we welcome you. If you're watching or even listening, thank you so much for tuning in to us. In this episode, we're going to go over how much wedding venues cost and how much you should budget for weddings. Before we get into this episode, we do have a sponsor.
Yes, we do. As always, our sponsor is ND Events. ND Events is a St. Louis-based full-service events company. So we now offer photography, videography, DJ, photo booth, as well as event planning and coordination services and officiating services. If you want to use ND Events for your wedding, you can find us at ndevents.com. That's ENDY events.com. You can also email us at sales@ndevents, or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at ND Events. I also have a tip for you today, Tyler.
What?
Since we're going to be talking a bit about budget, my tip for this week is to put away about 5% of your budget towards extra fees/emergency fund. So it's always good to over budget for something you know is going to cost a lot and something obviously you don't know 1,000% like where the fees are coming from or like, you know, what you're going to spend at the very end. So I suggest saving about 5%. So if you planned about a $20,000 budget for your wedding, that would be about $1,000. This would be good for your alterations at the end of buying a dress. Some people have been kind of shocked that, you know, they spend, you know, $3,000 on their dress and then all of a sudden, you know, they get it altered and there's extra fees at the end and they didn't budget for that. They just had that $3,000 budgeted for that dress. Or the tips that you give to, you know, your DJ, your photographer, your videographer, all that extra cash that maybe you didn't think about when you booked them for, you know, their specific package or any last minute add-ons that show up or any emergencies that you need that funds for. It's always good to have that extra set away so that you don't have to find it later.
No, it's really smart to do. Definitely saving money like that and then making sure, because it's just like as if you were, you know, a house owner. You don't know if you need that extra cash for certain things.
Right.
And so that's really smart to do. You know, I've never really thought about doing that. Like also it's hard for me to even sit there and I'm also one of those people that when you have an object, so like for this, the MacBook Pro, I just recently bought this. I saw the total amount of it and I was like, okay, so I have that much. Mm-hmm. Not thinking much about it, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to buy it because this is how much it is. But then when you're there, buying it, they're just like, do you want this type of protection? Do you want Apple Care? Mm-hmm. Do you want virus protection? Do you want Microsoft Word? Do you want like all these add-ons? Yep. And I'm sitting there like, no, I budget only for the computer and not anything else. Mm-hmm. And I would have gotten it, but I just didn't budget it.
Right.
So definitely what I'm trying to say is you want to make sure you save some sort of percentage of your money. So when things do happen, you are able to cover it depending on what it is, because you never know. So, yeah.
Yeah. The overwhelming majority of people say, you know, we thought that it was going to be $15,000 for our wedding, and that was the budget we were going to stay within. And all said and done, they're like, yeah, we spent about $23,000. You know, you don't want to be caught in a situation that puts you, you know, you're just starting a marriage. You don't want to be in debt starting that marriage.
Yeah, as I'm sitting here in debt.
Aren't we all?
I'm just like, I already have debt. What another couple thousand
debt?
is, But anyways, guys, how much does a wedding venue cost and how much should I budget? One of those first things you look to book, and can also be one of the most expensive things, is the actual venue itself. I mean, you literally have from barns to castles to just these urban style buildings. There are so many different aesthetic places where it varies on price. And that's what we want to do is we want to make sure that you have some knowledge behind what you want to do and some different steps, different ways to budget properly. We're not fully going to go through numbers because when I was looking up different averages of wedding venues, in Kansas City, they said their average was like $5,000. But then I looked at some other places and it was like $14,000, $15,000 just to book the venue. And I'm just talking about venue, guys. I'm not talking about anything else. I'm talking about just the venue to have your wedding at.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're here for, is just kind of going through the weeds, as you would say, of figuring out what you should get out of your actual venue. So why is it important to look for the location and venue first before anything else? As the main location for your big day, it can be no surprise that wedding venues hire is usually the greatest expense for a wedding, usually accounting for roughly a fifth of the cost. Of course, this will vary depending on the venue, location, and also a number of variables such as number of guests, food choices, drinks, costs, and etc. The average cost of a wedding venue can vary hugely depending on your requirement, size of wedding, location, and the venue itself. And ask yourself, what are your wedding goals? It is important to sit down as a couple and decide on the type of wedding you want. Wedding venues and prices can vary dramatically depending on your needs. Do you want a casual, low-key affair or a large celebration with no holding back? Are you looking to cater a large group of extended family and friends, or keep it small with a close and intimate group? Perhaps you want to go abroad and try an unusual venue such as a barn or castle. All venues varies in price, such as decor, hiring certain items, foods, drinks, you name it, like everything varies depending on the place. These are all important questions to consider before moving on to the next exciting stage. So definitely you want to kind of accumulate these type of information, because I know, for example, I'm just going to go through like what I kind of want on my day. I want to have a nice place where it has a nice aesthetic to it, kind of more like an urban style, probably more inner city or something like that. But I also want really good food, and I want to have an open bar, but making sure the bar is open for a good amount of time. And also a DJ. I'm not a fan of like live bands. Like, don't get me wrong, I love live bands. I love going to concerts. But just to me, honestly, it's just DJs are just a lot easier. You don't have to worry about any like weird sound checks. You don't have to worry about anything else. To me, DJ is just a little bit easier to go. But depending on like what type of DJ you go through, personally, I like personal ones. But you also have companies like any events that have really good DJs that will personalize things for you. So definitely check them out if you want that. Honestly, my goal is food, music, drinks, environment.
Right.
That's what I want to focus on. So these are definitely questions that you want to ask yourself. And then also what I'm going to be going through in the next few pages of things of what you should be focusing on when you're trying to get a venue, and also budgeting. And right now, yes, we're going to go through some logistics of actual budgeting of things that you might have thought about, but this podcast is definitely going to focus on definitely the wedding venue side, because we want to hit that first, because you should be hitting the actual venue like top priority, because you want to focus on where it's going to be at. Because if you don't know that location, then there's no point.
Well, not to mention, it is the big ticket item. So if you don't start there, say you have, like I said, $20,000 saved, it's on average that was going to be, a venue is going to be about 18 to 20% of your budget. That's a big chunk of change gone. So if you, pick something that maybe is 30% of your budget, you're going to have to adjust everything back from there. So it's really good to start with your venue first, because it's going to be that number one ticket item, and then go from there and figure out what vendors and will fit in with that venue as well.
Yeah. And so, wedding venue hire costs. I'm going to go through that whole information. The cost of a venue can vary dramatically, with wedding venue prices ranging from hundreds and into the thousands. Normally averaging from $5,000 to $14,000. This is also kind of like Midwest space, because we are, like I said, are located in the Midwest. So it's probably different in California and New York and Florida.
California would probably make me sick.
I get it, guys. Wherever you guys are listening to, and then you're just sitting here thinking, well, it's high. The wedding video that I just looked at is $20,000. I apologize. And maybe you should come into Missouri or Kansas or Chicago or something and look to see a different option. I mean, you never know. But once you have decided on your final list, ask the wedding coordinator for a wedding venue quote and price with a full breakdown of costs. It is important to look at the overall cost for what you get, since some cheaper venues might literally just be providing the backdrops without any food or drinks. Therefore, not all wedding venues quotes can be compared. You want to talk to the coordinators of those venues and figure out what you're getting. All you have to do is communicate with them. You don't want to get stuck with a bind in a contract where you think you're going to get all this stuff, and then actually when the day comes, you don't get your, 4-hour open bar, and you end up getting only 2 hours, or you have to pay extra for special desserts as opposed to just going with your wedding cake. A lot of people think that you need all the dessert, but really just focus on getting just sheets of your cake that you ended up getting. There's a lot of things that you cut down prices to make sure you get the venue that you want.
Yeah.
And so I actually have 3 things we're going to go through on this topic of wedding venues higher cost. So if you're driving, please do not write or type or text these information down. But if you are listening somewhere that you're able to take notes, definitely do so, because these are very important things that you want to write down and make sure you can apply it to when you're actually trying to book your own venue. So, hiring a venue. A wedding venue quote should always cover the cost of hire of a venue itself. If you're hiring a hotel with a restaurant, for instance, be clear on what areas are open to the public and which remain private for your use. Some wedding venues will offer you the option to hire the entire location for your private use. However, expect this to come at a premium, meaning that it may cost more if you want more spots. Be sure to ask for your setup and finish time as well. And if there's any specific limitations, for instance, some venues insist on no late music after 11 p.m., others have a no child policy after 6 p.m. So I don't know if you've actually been invited to a wedding that has no kids, but most of those venues actually don't allow kids. So when you actually get invited to an adult only wedding, odds are it's actually the venue saying we don't want kids, because there's a lot of things there that are not kid friendly. Mm-hmm. So that's also a thing. If you have a lot of family members that have kids, you want to be able to find places that will have family friends, family friendly environments for those type of people. And definitely with the whole no late after no music after maybe 11 p.m. or something, if you want to go until midnight or 1 o'clock or something like that, you want to make sure those venues accommodate those type of needs you want. It definitely, you want to just kind of figure out exactly what they all allow you to get, which going to leeway to the second topic, food and drink. If your quote includes the cost of food and drink, then that's one large part of the day taken care of. This is usually one of the other biggest costs in wedding prices. if you're planning to bring alcohol by yourself, ask for a corkage fee. You may find that this works out cheaper in the long run, depending on the venue even allows this, but most do not. So what I'm trying to say here is there are some venues that physically have their own bar where you cannot bring any drinks at all.
And there is actually a reason for that too.
Yes.
They have liquor licenses. So like if you're just thinking, oh, hey, like, I want to have my wedding at this park and we're going to bring a bunch of liquor. You actually can't do that. Like you have to have a certain license, especially in, I assume every state.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, depending. So there are some parks and stuff that allow you to bring, like, let's say you're doing your own like intimacy thing because of let's just say because of COVID or whatever, like you're wanting to do it at a park or whatever, and they allow you to bring alcohol. They'll have some limitations on it, but you have to look to see what time frame you're able to do it because there's multiple limitations on that, even though that you're bringing your own stuff. Like, let's say you're just doing it at a nice, just public park. You're able to do it, but there are definitely like rules, and you have to pay extra for the actual insurance to cover all of that. But then, I didn't know this, but apparently there are some venues that allow you to bring your own alcohol, which I really have never seen before. We are St. Louis based, so most venues here in St. Louis have a bar there because they have their own license, and which I see if you're able to buy your own liquor and stuff, obviously that might be more affordable or cost efficient for you to do that, but it's going to be harder because then if you run out, you run out, as opposed to places will have already an inventory stock and they'll prepare for this certain amount by head count. And so it's a little bit more organized. Yeah. So
not honestly, to mention they're trained to know when Uncle Larry's had one too many.
And it's just, it's safer for you to honestly spend the extra money. So this is kind of what Gabby just talked about extra expenses. If you want to spend money on anything extra, I would definitely make sure you have the whole drink thing down, especially if you are going to have an open bar. I understand that there's some weddings that are dry, which is fine. Then if you have a dry wedding, then you don't have to worry about all the alcohol expenses and stuff because alcohol is very expensive. But if you're not having a dry wedding, I would definitely advise you to spend the money to make sure that you have proper bartenders, mixologists. There are even caterers that do things. So I would definitely do what Gabby has suggested and make sure that you have the proper expenses aside for bars and drinks, depending on what you want to do.
Yeah, I have the percentage for that as well.
Oh, yes, please. Yeah. That'd be awesome.
For the drinks, that's generally about 8% of your budget. And for food, it's generally that higher number again, about 16 to 18% of your budget. So you're looking at similar costs to your venue. So if you can find a way that your venue actually serves that food, and you can get, obviously you and I know, but the more you can bundle with vendors, usually the more you get off, money wise. So it's always important to ask.
Well, that's way more than I thought, honestly. But once again, I'm learning things just like you guys, which is cool. But then let's move on to the final one for this part. It's called venue decor. Some venues include hire of seats, decoration, uplighting, and table decorations as part of the cost of wedding venue hire. They may recommend suppliers for decorations too. However, bear in mind an additional cost for this. Wedding venues will provide chairs, covers for your chairs, tablecloths, uplighting, stuff like that. Some may not. So once again, definitely figure out what you want to do. There are also some DJ services that will actually have uplighting that they could put around your venue to just make your thing look nicer. So definitely want to figure out your whole decor situation And we're going to be doing a podcast later on that's going to be more about DIY of decor and stuff like that. I think a good podcast for you guys would be a DIY of trying to make a lot of different things. And also just, I feel like if you go that route where if you could create it, it's going to cost way less as opposed to just buying it off of certain sites and stuff. And what people don't understand is immediately when you go on Google and you type in wedding or bridal party of any source, immediately it doubles the amount of pricing. So if you limit, this is actually a different tip. If you actually, this is a personal tip that I know, but if you actually look things up without using the word or tagline weddings or bridal party, it will actually be cheaper than actually putting wedding flowers. If you just put flowers and just say, I have an event.
I was going to say, so if I was looking for to rent table or chairs and I said event chairs,
yes,
I would be getting a lower quote.
Yes.
Than
I don't know why, but they start gouging people or couples immediately when they know it's a wedding because they know they want it. Mm-hmm. So a very good tip is try to beat around the bush of what it actually is. I mean, eventually, yeah, they're going to be like, yeah, it's my wedding. And they may give you a deal regardless. And I'm not trying to bag on anybody that does that. But the thing is what I know from working for Men's Warehouse, when we knew that the tuxedo was for a wedding, you bet you those numbers went up. And we made sure everybody got a tuxedo or a suit. Like we made sure. But then when people were just like, no, we're doing events, we still helped them, but we didn't know what it was for because they're being very generic. We knew it was probably for weddings, but the thing is we definitely didn't try to upsell them like we do for, a wedding party.
Yeah.
And I had a fourth one, which I totally forgot. There's not three. I'm sorry, guys. So there's actually 4, not 3, for the higher part. So definitely make some space for this on your notepad. This is supplier discount. Sometimes wedding venues hire includes discount with certain preferred suppliers. For this reason, it's useful to attend open day for your wedding venue where you can get to meet suppliers firsthand. So what that means is some venues will have a list called a preferred venue list or vendor
Preferred
slash,
vendor. Preferred vendor.
Yeah, preferred vendor slash supplier. And they're companies that they are kind of partnered up with that will give you maybe a discount or some sort of give you like a perk or discount of some sort if you use them. Definitely try to talk to them about that.
I would suggest doing your research because sometimes they'll upcharge because when they link like that, their prices online, that particular vendor, because if they're upcharging because a certain percent of that fee goes to the venue itself, then you could be actually not getting a deal. So it's always important just to do your research regardless and make sure that, they say it's, we're a preferred vendor and we're going to give you a deal or whatever, but just always do your research and make sure you're getting the best deal that you can.
Yeah. And also use that if they have maybe like an open house or if you actually if you want to book with them, definitely do like a walkthrough of seeing the place, but also kind of ask them about their list of people that they may want to use or like preferred, like I said, preferred supplier or vendor. Like definitely get as much information as you can. This is your day. They're not going to say no. Like get as much information as possible because you do not want to, in the long run, on your day feel unhappy with the options that you got because this is your day. So that's what we're trying to do is making sure that you get what you want. So what is not included in potentially any of these, although all wedding venues, prices, and packages varies, as a general rule, most will not include photographers or a videographer, flower, an open bar, or live band / DJ. If you are looking at exclusive wedding packages, then again, make sure you're you understand everything that is included and what isn't, or if they have a preferred vendor. It is best to clarify these requirements with your wedding coordinator in advance so you are clear on what additional costs you may need to budget for. So once again, there are some venues that actually have preferred vendors for photographers, videographers, flowers, open bar, some sort of thing, live bands, DJs or whatever. Like there are some lists, but others may not have it. So definitely try to figure out what it is. Also, it would be terrible if you just assumed that you got a photographer going with them, and all of a sudden your day comes and you're just like, where's a photographer? And you find out that you never booked a photographer. That would be super awkward, but you don't want to put yourself in that situation. So definitely ask them. And just because they're preferred vendor on that venue does not mean you get them automatically. You have to still book them. Just because they're a preferred vendor does not mean they automatically become yours. You have to go to them personally and hire them. That's what it means. It's just a list of things that you could associate with that venue. And basically, when there is a preferred vendor, that's mean that they have done multiple weddings at that location, so they have been there the most. Now, there are people that have gone there because, for example, I've been to personally every single venue possible in Missouri. Like, I'm sure I've hit at least all of them. There might be one or two I may have not been to, but I've definitely hit all of them to the point where I have experience in each and every one of them. So definitely make sure you book those things if you are wanting those in your day.
I think another thing that maybe people don't think about when they go to visit a venue, but could actually end up costing them more, is if they don't include a bridal suite or somewhere for, the groom or the bride to get ready. If you end up, doing your ceremony and your reception at the same location, that can save you a lot of money. But if they don't have a place for you to get ready, then you're going to have to add on either a hotel charge, or everyone's going to have to meet in somebody's house, and then you're going to need transportation fees to get over there. And so that's a good question to ask when you're booking, because it might have a really great price on that venue, but you're going to have to factor in those other additional prices if there's nowhere for you guys to get ready.
Yeah, you definitely want to answer that. Most venues now have the suites of some sort, mainly for the bridal side. There are some groom stuff, but once again, kind of grooms just, they're able to kind of get ready.
Pushed off to the side as normal.
Yeah, which is cool. It's all good. But I've seen both suites, and I've seen only one suite, and I've seen just places where you can actually stay, which comes up with the whole thing of there are venues out there that if it is too far, they actually have some cottages or like villas or whatever that you could actually stay over the night, and it actually is associated with your package, which is really cool. Right. I know like Herman Hill out in Herman, they have little cottages that you could book with your packages, and you could stay overnight because it's not the closest venue to get to. Also, there's really nothing around that venue. So it gives people who are out of state a option to stay overnight at the place. Plus, it's safe, where when you are drinking, you don't have to worry about Ubers and cars and stuff. Mm-hmm. You could just go straight into wherever you're staying on site, which is perfect.
Yeah. Another note on that too is some venues actually work with the hotels in the area, and you could actually end up getting kind of a deal if you ask. I know a friend of mine, she is doing a wedding that's out in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, but she's booked a block of rooms at a hotel nearby because A, they work together, and B, she just asked the entire bridal party, hey, it's going to be a long night. It's going to be a long day. If you'd like to stay, it's just $80 a night. We've got a bit of a deal. So if you're interested, let me know. And so we're obviously going to do it. And it can be really helpful for everyone, especially your bridal party. After such a long day, you're expecting so much from them. It's good. It's a good option.
My also favorite thing that I've seen recently is the wedding party will have a table at like or near the exit, and it's discount percentages of like Uber drivers or taxi drivers or like Lyft or whatever. And so what it is, it'll be like a 10% or 50% off your ride. And then, I mean, I've seen, well, there's one high-end wedding that I did where they paid everybody's like Uber, which, you know, that might be another option that you guys want to do is, you know, these are once again, these small, minor expenses that you don't really think about. Because you want to make sure that your guest is safe because it is families, it's friends, it's people that you care about. When you are on a day for hours drinking and, you know, just having fun and stuff like that, you want to make sure that they get home safe. So definitely take that extra steps and expenses to make sure that they're getting the proper traveling of whatever they need.
Yeah. I know as a guest, if instead of a party favor with, you know, the bubbles and, you know, emergency kit for hangover, blah, 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 blah. If I just got a ride home from the venue, I mean, that would make my night.
Yeah. So how to find a wedding venue on a budget. Regardless of your wedding budget, if cost for your perfect wedding venue is out of budget, there's a few smart ways to bring down costs without having to go with an option you didn't want. First, consider opting for a midweek wedding or a date out of peak season, which is January to mid-March, where demand is lower. This can dramatically slash wedding reception prices up to 20%, which could be spent on the honeymoon or elsewhere. If you love a venue but is out of your budget, then watch out for special offers or late special availabilities. Another cost-cutting strategy is to have a later wedding in order to minimize the amount of food and drinks you have to cater to. Not all wedding venues offer half-day hires, but it's worth asking if you're looking at ways to save on budget. You may also want to consider a wedding buffet, which tends to be more affordable options, and serve your wedding cake for dessert. As a final option to keep your budget in line without compromising your wedding venue, think about reducing headcount. Perhaps there are some guests that can just be invited to the evening celebration instead, or maybe you could both agree to not invite work colleagues. So, to wrap this all up, these are different options and ways to make sure that you're also reducing the amount of prices depending on your thing. Because my big goal on this episode is to make sure that you're getting married at the location that you're wanting. And if it's completely out of price, you may want to look at different options. So one of my tips is for you is try to look for off-season stuff, meaning a normal season of a wedding season starts roughly around June, July-ish. And that wedding season goes all the way up to November, December. Like it is packed. It is constantly filled because of how the weather is and that's just peak season. But I have always joked that my summer vacation is January to March because as a shooter for weddings, I don't get much booked. Like for example, so far this year, I've only shot one wedding. It is now, February 8th? So out of this year already, I've only done one wedding. So you want to look and see if venues have some sort of discount because it is off season, because they want to book their day as well. And they're willing to do it. Mm-hmm. It's just depending on, what venue options they have or what type of, dates they have available. I mean, yeah, it may not be the proper date that you may want, but it's at least the location that you want it. And so definitely try to look and see if you want to potentially do that.
Another angle on that is some brides have been looking for like instead of the Saturday wedding that's really so common, they go for a Friday night wedding. So, you can have your reception or your ceremony at 5. And if a few people can't make it, that's okay. But I mean, you can save about $1,000 to $2,000 on your venue by booking on a Friday night, and even higher on a Sunday if that's something you'd be interested in.
Which Friday is actually considered a half day because it's done normally more in the evening time.
Sure.
Because people are still working. They normally start around like 5 or 6, and then they end around like 11 or midnight.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, you want to look to see. Now, like I said, some venues may not have the option to do half days because some venues are just, that's how they are. They want the full day price because that's what they're going to get. And, they want to pay their people and stuff. But, it just depends on, you just have to ask. So also a big thing is people, besides trying to get all these individual, desserts and stuff, just use your cake that you got. Like, if you're going to get a cake and get a certain amount of tiers, just use that type of cake for dessert. You don't need all these cupcakes and cookies and donuts and ice cream and all that. Like, just use your cake. You can easily buy sheets. They're actually, it's one of the most affordable things to do is just buying your 3-4 tier cake that you want, and then buy a big huge sheet to make sure that everybody else gets a piece. Like, not many people do that for some reason. I'm not much of a cake guy. I like cupcakes if I have to choose an option, but I mean, like, maybe go like a cupcake route or do cookies. I have also seen that people have this huge board where they'll hang on the wall with pegs, and it's donuts.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's so many options you could do to limit the amount of desserts. Definitely go through your options. Everything has some sort of price tag on it. And what you want to do is you want to minimize the amount if you want to get a certain wedding venue that cost a lot. So, Gabby, I actually have a tip for you.
For me personally?
I have a tip just in general because you always do a tip segment.
Okay.
And I feel left out. So I actually have a tip for this topic.
Okay.
Ready for this? Mm-hmm. Create a wedding spreadsheet for your venues, allowing you to get quotes, comparing them all in terms of costs as well as what is included for each, and see them all side by side so you can visualize them better and decide what is the best option for you and your loved one. So meaning, create a spreadsheet, get your top 5, top 10 or whatever, put them side to side and see what they have to offer. If one has open bar and it says yes, you just put yes. If the other one says no, and then see the comparison of the pros and cons and figure out what wedding venue may be it, because you never know. You may want this wedding venue, but you find out at the end of the day it's not what you want because of the type of restrictions and limitations they have. So definitely make a spreadsheet and figure out what you want.
That's a pretty good tip.
I know, I feel fancy.
Yeah. Maybe not as good as mine, but that's, pretty good.
I try. But budget for your perfect wedding venue. One of the first things many engaged couples do when beginning to think about planning their wedding is to discuss venues. However, how do you even begin in choosing your perfect wedding venue? There's a lot to consider, and time and thought should be put into ensuring the venue you choose is perfect for your wedding and for you. Choosing your perfect wedding venue can seem like a daunting task, one that can cause stress and difficult decisions. However, with a few top tips, we can make it easier for you. So, once again, grab that little notepad. Once again, if you're driving, just take mental notes. But I want to make sure the actual number. Okay, I have 5. I have 5 tips for you to make sure you get your perfect wedding venue that you want. Take some stress off your shoulders and make sure that, you're not so stressed out about your decisions, and try to make this an easier task instead of it being super daunting, because I know that this could be very stressful. So, number 1, communicate. I know, simple, right? Obviously, communicate with your people, but for some reason, people don't do it. So choosing a wedding venue is a 2-person job, and the thought of both bride and groom or bride and bride or groom should be considered communicating well and share ideas as to what type of wedding venues you have in mind. After all, the possibilities are endless. So communicate. That's all you need to do. Make sure you're getting everything you want out of your wedding venue. Make sure you ask all the questions because I promise you it's going to be very stressful on your day when you find out that there are some hidden gems in that contract you didn't read.
Yeah.
And now you're going to be pissed and it's going to ruin your day and you're not going to be happy. So communicate, people. Number 2, budget. It is important to firstly decide on a budget for your wedding venue. Not all wedding venues will be a viable option for everyone, and by deciding on a strict budget can narrow down your options and highlight your realistic choices. So, yes, if you want, if you watch like Prince Henry or whatever, getting married in like a beautiful mansion castle with guards and all of this elegant stuff and with like $50,000 centerpieces with flowers and, all this stuff. Realistically, are you able to afford that? If you can, awesome. Please definitely send me a check.
I was going to say.
Because I would love to have those moments. But make sure you're budgeting and make sure you're getting what you need to do. For example, DIY is a very good option to do if you can't get certain things you want, or find different ways to reduce the price. Like I've been saying for this past 50 minutes now, like you could definitely budget properly to get what you want at the end of the day. Number 3, numbers. Before choosing your perfect wedding venue, ensure you have a rough idea on how many guests you will expect at the ceremony. Large venues and churches are great for those who are expecting a large number of guests, and small, low capacity, intimate wedding venues are perfect for those who are hoping to keep the guest numbers down. However, problems can arise if your wedding venue doesn't accommodate for the number of people you hope to invite. Now, you kind of brought something up about the backyard wedding.
Yeah, so I think one thing to note is, if you're thinking about, man, these venues are crazy expensive. That's the truth. They are crazy expensive. And if you think, oh, well, we've got a beautiful backyard, let's do it there. It'll be free. Well, it won't.
No.
Unless you have like 20 tables and 70 chairs, you're expecting 50 to 100 guests, you have to rent that. If it's going to rain, you're going to have to rent a tent. If you want that, your backyard to look beautiful, you're going to have to pay for all those decorations that could come with the venue. So I think it's just really important to remember, like, nothing's free.
Yeah.
If you're going to go that route, you're going to have to add at least $5,000 worth of additional rentals on that too.
And it's hard because numbers is going to also vary too with your guest count or whatever. Like it's going to affect the price at the end of the day. So it definitely, you want to do the research on the best availability for you to accommodate for your type of numbers. So number 4 is date. So I know this could be kind of dicey and kind of hard to explain, but sadly, some couples have an idea of what wedding date before a venue is booked, an anniversary, birthday, or some special day, for example. However, remember that not all wedding venues will be available. So before deciding on a venue and be disappointed on that date isn't available, ask around to see where it's free on your requested date. So make sure you figure out the venue that you want to book if they have that special day. And sorry to say it, but most of the time that it's not going to. So you're going to have a backup, even a backup. Like, it is hard to make sure you get that date. So if you want that date, you may have to book a couple years out. I know that some people can engage immediately. They could try to get married in a year. I'm sorry, but that's just not going to work. So if you want a perfect wedding day, you are going to have to book a couple of years out and not, rush it. So also you got to understand that if you get engaged on like July 4th or like a New Year's Eve, and you want to get married on July 4th or New Year's Eve, those are very busy days because not only they're holidays, but there are going to be other July 4th and New Year's Eve weddings. Sorry to burst your bubble, but just because it's your day does not mean it's going to be somebody else's day. Like here in St. Louis, we have a park called Forest Park, and there is a place called the Muni, which is an amphitheater that's like outside, but in front of it, they have like these huge pillars and places to get photos done. The amount of times a bride asks me that they're going to go to the Muni to get photos done, and then all of a sudden I tell them that there's going to be other wedding parties and they don't believe me. And when we pull up in their party bus and they see 7, 8, 9 other wedding parties there doing the same thing on the same day, immediately she's just like, oh, there's other weddings happening. I wouldn't expect this place to be so packed. And in the back of my head, I'm like, do you understand that you and everybody else wants photos done at this place? Like, I get it. It is special for you. Obviously, you picked it for a reason, but you are not the only one. I'm sorry to say that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to burst your bubble.
Yeah.
So you want to plan it out. You
But
want
it's
to make
my
sure.
day.
I know,
Tyler.
Gabby, I
it's
understand.
my day.
I get it.
I'm the princess.
I get it, but you may want to book it a couple years out and figure out a different place. I want to express, like, don't get me wrong. Try to get the day that you want, but at the same time,
Understand that it's limiting.
it is. It's going to be very hard for you to choose that. And like, I know it's just hard and it sucks, but at the same time, though, make sure you have backups, plans. And if you want that date and you're gun ho that you want that, then prepare to do it a couple of years out. Mm-hmm. Just letting you know. And then number 5 is guest. Think about your guest and whether or not you've chosen wedding venues as a good choice for them. Though the final decision should be based on the wants of the bride and groom, guests are an important part of any weddings as well. For example, a wedding venue in the middle of nowhere may not be somewhere guests can get to easily without incurring large traveling fees, and a wedding venue in a city without hotels nearby may be an issue for those traveling far away. So make sure it's accommodating for everyone on your list if most are coming out of town. So what we're talking about, those like villas and cottages and just small hotels and stuff like that, and blocking it out and making sure you have budgets for those situations. You want to make sure that you are accommodating those for your guests that are out of state. Yeah. We were just talking about this with the whole, we met at Disney World or Disneyland. We met at Disney World, but we want to get married in Orlando for a wedding to have a Disney themed or style wedding. If you are not from Florida and none of your family or friends live in Florida, why would you force everybody to go there just to have your wedding? I mean, like, don't get me wrong, you can do that, but it's going to be hard for some people. You have to understand that everybody is in a different predicament or position in their life, especially with the whole pandemic that just happened. It's still going on, but just the whole situation that's going on, that some people may not be financially stable enough to do that.
Yeah. Or comfortable.
Yeah. So you have to accommodate on your guests, because yes, it is your day, but your day should be, filled with people that you love and want to have the day with. So you definitely make sure that they're able to come. You can still have that Disney themed wedding.
Yeah.
But you could do it anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And understand too, like even if you're having your wedding an hour away from the town where everyone lives, your guests are constantly going to be thinking about that throughout the night. It's going to take me an hour to get home. So we're going to leave at 9 to get home at 10 instead of staying until the very end because it's dark and we have to drive, this is a long drive home. And, that can really be a bummer on some people. And the bride will be like, oh my gosh, why is everybody leaving early? Well, hun, it's because you chose a venue that's an hour away from everyone.
Yep. And it's hard because I've seen it happen where there's a middle of nowhere. People leave at 8, but it's not done until 11. And so right around like 9 o'clock when they want to do like a sparkling exit or something, there's not really much people there anymore because they left, because they have to leave. And it's hard. So if you want people to stay for a long time, make sure that it's accommodated for your guest. So with that being said, I definitely want to go over some reminders and just kind of some takeaways for today. When you also want to book for your wedding venue or also just budget for your wedding is to communicate. Make sure you're communicating with your vendors, with your coordinators, with your whoever. Like you're making sure that you are communicating to see what you're fully getting on your day, because it would be terrible if you go to your day and you think that you're going to get something and in all reality you're not. Number 2, budget. Making sure you're budgeting, putting away money like Gabby said, and making sure you are making spreadsheets and figuring out comparison of side by side of what you physically want. Definitely focus on your budget because that's the biggest thing, because you don't want to get in a weird bind where you're going to pretty much go bankrupt over this because it's a special day, but don't go broke over this. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, spend the money for actual necessities that you may need, like getting a house together or starting, your family or buying things you need to get. Like, don't get me wrong, you'll get gifts or whatever from guests that are coming in or whatever. They'll help you out with that. But definitely find ways to minimize cost. Number 3, numbers. Making sure that, you're getting the proper numbers you want for the venues. You don't want to hire a large venue if you're only going to have 50 people. What's the point of that? Why are you spending so much money just for a large environment? Get a nice intimacy area or location that will just hold the 50 people, and it's still going to be great. You don't need to have a huge castle. Now, if you want a castle, then go right ahead, do it. But you don't need to do that. Number 4, date. Sorry to burst your bubble, but definitely have a different plan if your date doesn't work out. If you want to have that date, you got to make sure you're booking out years on end to make sure you get that date. You might get lucky. You may want it on September 5th. And, sure enough, this year, September 5th is open because of a lot of cancellations. Congratulations. You just hit the lottery.
The jackpot.
You just...
the wedding lottery.
You, out of 1 out of a million, you got it. Congratulations. That's amazing. But not everybody's lucky. Definitely have a backup plan just in case. And number 5 is guest. Make sure you're accommodating your guest, making sure that they're also happy as well. I know it's your day, but at the same time, though, you got to make sure that it is going to work for them as well, because you don't want to be sad that you invited 80 people and only 30 people showed up. That just feels bad. You invested in all the money, you bought foods, you bought drinks, you expected all these people to show up, and all of a sudden they don't show up. Nobody wants that. I've had an event in my life where I invited all these people and only 7 people showed up, and I definitely invited more, and it sucks. It doesn't feel good. So you definitely want to make sure that you accommodate guest
as best
needs
you can.
As best you can, but at the same time, don't compromise on your day. Mm-hmm. Make sure that you're getting what you want, but at the same time, though, they also get something that they could get as well. But with that being said, guys, thank you so much for listening to us. I literally cannot express how this podcast is and how it's going. I am very excited to see where this takes. Gabby and I have some great ideas coming in. The next episode, we actually have a special guest. We'll have two people on talking about bridal parties and whatnot. And bridal parties, what am I talking about? They're going to be coming in and talking about bridal shows and also their wedding venue. So it's kind of going to piggyback off of this episode. So definitely, if you like this video, give it a like on YouTube. Also comment on the video if you have any ideas or just want to say, hey guys, you're doing great, or hey, you guys are spitting whatever. But we want to see comments. We want you guys to email us as well. Once again, our email is weddingsmadeperfectpodcast@gmail.com. Definitely, we want to hear from you guys. I see you guys listen to us. I've been seeing the analyze on Spotify. You guys are listening to it on Spotify. You guys are listening to it on or watching or listening to it on YouTube. I see you guys.
Yeah.
I see it.
I know you have questions.
I know you have questions. So burn them to us. We want to shout out some couples even. If you guys are having a big day coming, or if you guys just got married, or if
just engaged.
Let's say you got married 5 years ago. Tell us about it. Yeah. Tell how everything's going.
Yeah.
Give us a tip for some up and comer, newlyweds. Give us some information. Yeah. We are here for this reasoning. We want to make sure that we make your day special and make a wedding perfect. And that's why we have this name of Weddings Made Perfect. We want to make sure that you are feeling great on your day and going, wow, this couldn't have gone any better. And that's what we're here for. But once again, guys, my name is Ty, and I have Gabby across from me, and we're signing off.